In 1991, a videotape would end up in the hands of Charlie Sheen, showing what he thought to be one of the most brutal acts against someone. Visceral, disgusting, and horrifying contents. More specifically, the torture of a young Japanese girl at the hands of a man in a samurai costume. Horrified, he contacted the FBI about this tape, where he was informed they were already investigating the crime with the Japanese police force. This said investigation led to the fact that what Charlie had seen had been a real, bona fide, bootleg copy of the film Flower of Flesh and Blood, the second film in the J-horror franchise Guinea Pig. The actress on screen was alive, and so was the legend of the elusive snuff film. This is the grim reality of snuff films. Take 2. If you're having deja vu and you're like, Darby, I totally saw this thumbnail and or video title and or opening of this video a week ago. Why am I seeing this again? Well, the video was wrongfully deemed to not be on here, so this is the redo. I will have you know, if you watch this video already and you're like, I already saw this, I know everything you're gonna say, I took stuff out, I added new stuff completely into it, and did rearrange a lot of stuff in this. So if you saw the original video, feel free to keep watching, because you will have different things and different takes in this video, and in different crimes cases, and different everything, if I'm very honest. I took out a large bulk of it and moved it around. So, if you saw this video, here's a new video. If you didn't see the last video, here's a new video. The word snuff has been used in English slang for hundreds of years, typically referred to extinguishing a flame, snuffing out a candle. But in 1874, it would be defined as a term very common among the lower orders of London, meaning to die from disease or accident. By the contrived current standing definition of snuff, it seems to not exist according to the US government at all. The current standing of what snuff is: a film created of taking the life of a person for a pure monetary gain, in the means of selling or distributing the film and or material created. I want to reiterate this to you as much as humanly possible, because that was, for some reason, something that in the original video just kind of kept getting lost. This is what the current recognized term snuff is to the federal government. Death on camera is not snuff. Snuff is, by definition, created and made in the entire purpose of getting monetary gain of distributing said film. Period, point blank. I just really want to get that to you in the front. Mo money, mo problems. Like, it is only about money. Any death on camera is not snuff. Okay? I really want to hammer that in at the start of this video. And with that, people filming this most heinous crime you commit is nothing new, especially coming online with famous individuals like Luca Magnotta, or people just self-uploading their own endings of lies on live streams or preset recordings. Death on camera is nothing new to the human populace. But the elusive snuff film still, to this day, as standing in November 2024, according to the federal government, they say snuff does not exist. This has been something that's coming and circulating a long time in the news, even at one point the publisher of Screw magazine going out to offer a $1 million reward to anyone who could provide proof of a true, genuine snuff film to him. Of course, there was never any takers for that, and frankly, I don't think Screw has that type of money anymore. But with us having absolutely no concrete, technical, legal, defined proof of snuff films existing, and it being denied by the federal government, in this video, I'm going to go down the brief rundown of snuff, the term, history, incidences, and why I personally, truly, genuinely believe snuff films are a real thing that have occurred and will continue to occur. And with that, let's get into the vast and grim and partially fictional history of snuff films. In 1907, a French-Polish writer would publish a short story called A Good Film. In this, newsreel photojournalists stage a murder due to the public fascination with true crime at the time. In the story, the public believes the murder is real, but the police determine that the crime was completely faked. This is one of the first media points we can point to in the reference of a murder done for gain. In this case, it was done for a news story, not the typical monetary gain we're discussing today, but it is definitely a significant thing to point at, that this was murder done for some gain, albeit fictional. But the first use of the term snuff film was in 1971, Ed Sanders' book, The Family, regarding the Charles Manson family cult murders.
Manson, 36, chose a house at random, tied up the family at gunpoint, then ordered his followers to go inside and commit ritual slaughter.
In it, an anonymous one-time member of the infamous Manson family cult who claimed that the group made a snuff film in California by recording the murder of a woman on film. However, this interviewee later added that he had never actually seen this film or partook in it, but was just told rumors that this video was made and occurred. In later editions of the book, Sanders himself clarified that no films depicting a real murder or murder victims had ever been found from the Manson family. It is true that the police seized a camera loaded with unexposed film when they raided Spawn Ranch on October 10th, 1969. Once again, no movies of murders were ever located. So the urban legend of a snuff film immediately starts out on the foot of technically a lie. I genuinely personally believe this person was never in the Manson family, and the Manson family never made any snuff films themselves. But this did not stop the surge of the rumor of snuff films happening in the 70s. A lot of these were fueled with the rumor of their taking place in South America, where the title film Snuff would refer to Life is Cheap. Part of this was due to the fact that at the time, a lot of countries were being fed Mondo documentaries. In Mondo documentaries, they were showing what can be considered pretty brutal aspects of life in other continents. A lot of them taking place in Africa and South America, showing extremely brutal rituals or incidences that took place in these tribes. Now, a lot of these were filmed by Italian filmmakers, and then the American dubs of them that were fed to the American public were dubbed a lot different, and frankly, and honestly, some people tried arguing with me this before. If you listen to the American dubs of certain Mondo films, they are wildly racist. So this does start fueling a specific type of fire surrounding the concept of, well, if you go down to these certain countries, yeah, they're probably gonna kill and eat you. Undeniably, the first taste in major media of the concept of a true snuff film would be a low-budget horror flick originally titled Slaughtered that would be later changed to the title of simply Snuff. Slaughtered was based extremely loosely on the Manson family cult and was filmed by a couple in Argentina that would later be sold off to a third-party distributor. This distributor, Alan Shackleton, who ended up deeming it completely unable to release due to how horrible the quality of the film was. Several years later, though, Shackleton read about snuff films being imported from South America and decided to cash in on the rumors and attempt to get some of his money back on the purchase of Slaughter. With this, he rebranded the film from Slaughter to Snuff, and in this, he actually cuts the movie around the 73 or 74 minute mark and creates a whole new ending to the film that is very obviously just a new ending added. I will preface, Snuff is, please watch it. I really genuinely want people to watch it. It's so bad. It's so actually bad, but like, watch it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like on purpose bad. Like, it's that pure, genuine garbage film that, you know, nowadays is hard to come by, but please watch Snuff. In this new ending, we see them cut back from the original ending, the scenes kind of showing us this behind the scenes situation where one of the crew members starts saying she got hot and heavy by what they were doing on camera. So the director starts to advance on her, and then it gets mildly aggressive, and she realizes, like, hey, all the camera crews are here and recording, and she's like, oh, this isn't cool, and then the camera crew guys, like, kind of emerge and start, you know, helping in this situation, and they begin to torture her and actually disembowel her on camera. I cannot stress you how awful the effects in this movie are. That's part of what makes it so absolutely amazing, is just how bad it is. Like, when they cut her fingers off, and then, like, they'll go back in another scene, and, like, all her fingers are back, and it's like, it's, again, so bad, you gotta watch it. And then just when the scene cuts out and the music stops, you hear the cameraman say ominously, "Got it." Alan actually took a very revolutionary tool for the horror genre that hadn't been used before, in which he paid for essentially bad press of the film. He paid for people to go outside and picket the film showing, saying how horrified they were. They were showing camera film of real murder and a girl being murdered on camera, and people were buying tickets to see it. And this actually worked so well in his favor that he didn't have to pay picketers anymore. Picketers showed up on their own, and there was horrible press about how brutal and horrifying and real Snuff was, although we of course know this was absolutely not the case. This did exactly what was needed in brewing up press, gaining profit margins, and actually ending up in the result of the New York District Attorney investigating the film, having to establish that it wasn't real. This was one of the first times Snuff had to legally be addressed by federal government. Along with this, around the similar time was the adult star Linda Lovelace, who turned into an activist and spoke before the U.S. Attorney General's Commission on Organized Crime and claimed that she firsthand had seen and knew that women who were no longer useful to the industry were routinely murdered, both on and off camera. Obviously, Linda was not able to provide any evidence for this claim at all, but it was her claim on the official record. And with this, Snuff had established for the horror genre kind of what a snuff film was. Amateur, gritty, a lot of POV, one girl being attacked, very, very low budget. Because if you think about it, if you were actually going to kill someone on camera, you're not going to have a whole soundstage. You're not going to have the sexy boom guy from Saw. You're going to be doing this in some weird, gross, isolated place with, not super advanced technology. It was gritty camcorder footage filmed for monsters by monsters. It had successfully established this new widespread paranoia as evasive as UFOs or Bigfoot. We would see this then transfix into the found footage horror genre with the absolutely revolutionary film Cannibal Holocaust. As horrible and brutal and disgusting as Cannibal Holocaust was, it is undeniably one of the most revolutionary films for the genre of horror, exploitation, and found footage as a complete whole. Now, Cannibal Holocaust does unfortunately contain what we can at this point refer to as animal snuff, because undeniably, that's absolutely what it was. This was animals being killed on camera for monetary profit. It's, again, snuff means person, but, they literally killed animals on camera in the means of getting money from the film. So, it's kind of hard to dismiss that whole factor when it comes to Cannibal Holocaust, but although they didn't kill any people in that, the director of Cannibal Holocaust tried to make it as believable that he did as humanly possible. In Cannibal Holocaust, they once again wanted to establish and have us believe this uncivilized group of South American tribe that believed in cannibalizing, claiming that the actors were killed when filming this real documentary, even having them agree to stay into hiding post-filming, and the director having to even bring them into a court of law to establish that no one died, because that is just how convinced people were who saw Cannibal Holocaust, believing it was real because it was marketed as completely real. This was one of the first times they were like, hey, everyone you see on camera is real. Other than, actual Mondo documentaries, including things like Faces of Death, where in that we see death on camera in real time. But Cannibal Holocaust was absolutely fictional as much as it didn't appear to be. Part of this is due to the fact that I think, as I mentioned, the effects in Snuff are horrible. The effects in Cannibal Holocaust still hold up pretty well, and when you unfortunately have real animal murder on camera, it kind of amplifies the special effects into making them look more real, because you just actually saw real death, and it's this gross, paradox that absolutely, fed into itself and helped it be so much more brutal and disgusting to view of a film. Over the years, details started evolving and changing around the reality about what snuff films were, just like all good myths do. 8mm films then turned into videotapes, and I will now mention 8mm, one of the most underrated films in my humble opinion, starring Nick Cage and Joaquin Phoenix. In this, Nick Cage is a hired PI who is then on the trail of snuff films and finding this ring of creators of snuff with the help of Joaquin Phoenix, who works at an adult store. I bring up 8mm because 8mm now establishes the idea that snuff is made in your backyard, in America, for Americans. This is no longer some contrived, fake, cannibalistic tribe from out of America who are heathens compared to Western culture. This is showing that these are deprived, sick killers in who knows where, middle America, just killing random people for the enjoyment and pleasure of other individuals. This also keeps our original aesthetic surrounding a snuff film. Once again, gritty, disgusting, low budget, just exploitation splatter at its absolute finest. Now, I believe the urban legend and idea of snuff films has never thrived more or been absolutely more prevalent than the use of internet in this age, including the large things surrounding red rooms, which we'll get into in one moment. But just like outside of movies, we saw this influence media in other ways, just like I think the most prevalent video game surrounding snuff films being that of Manhunt, released in 2003 by Rockstar Games. In Manhunt, you're a death row inmate forced to participate in creating snuff films by the director who has sent a gang to hunt you down, in which he watches via CCTV all over the city. In turn, you're forced to kill or be killed. The game is 20 levels, or as referred to in the game as scenes. In each scene, you are graded on your few factors, depending on what mode you play, speed, brutality of your execution, as well as completing the entire scene. The game itself was banned in multiple countries due to the absolute brutality and visceral, disgusting violence in the game, as it was up to you as the player as your means of murder, and you could kind of go super absolutely crazy in this game. It was so intense that it caught the attention of U.S. Representative Joe Baca, who is the sponsor of a legislation to fine those who sell adult-themed games to players younger than 17. He said about Manhunt, "It's telling kids how to kill someone, and it uses vicious, sadistic, and cruel methods to kill." Fortunately, soon enough, a real murder would try to prove that false fact. On July 8 of 2004, a 14-year-old boy named Stephen would be killed by his 17-year-old friend Warren in a park in England. In the first media reports, it was claimed the police had found a copy of Manhunt inside Warren's bedroom. The parents of the victim believe that the video game influenced Warren to commit the murder against their son, although after this was initially established by the media reports, it was vehemently denied by the police and the entire court case itself, saying the game had no way in influencing this murder quite literally at all. This did not stop the absolute reputation surrounding Manhunt inspiring a murder. This led to them attempting and failing to stop the production of Manhunt 2, but the stigma around the game still stands as one of the most viscerally violent and brutal video games ever to be released. And as I've mentioned multiple times in this video, because I need to reiterate it as much as humanly possible, Snuff is made for the monetary profit. That is the only reason Snuff films are made. But gore videos? Death on camera? That's its whole other subgenre. If you've witnessed any shock site, you're probably very familiar with this fact, and unfortunately, similar to horror films, real-life gore fanatics also have notorious videos and classifications. War videos, cartel videos, and very rarely, but always getting insane attention, are self-uploads of murder. Sites of yesteryear like Rotten.com, LiveLeak, Best Gore, and WatchPeopleDie.com invited the concept of watching some of the most insane, brutal accidents and crimes against humanity live at home by just a click of your finger. And with this, you started gaining these odd communities of individuals who would consume and watch this content all day and house it. And with this, you end up getting these notorious videos or even shock videos that you would send to individuals to scare them. Things like Funky Town, One Lunatic, One Ice Pick, Chech Clear, and in this case, 3 lunatics, 1 hammer. Undeniably, the absolute closest, if not true, genuine thing we have to a snuff film is the video of 3 lunatics and 1 hammer. In this, we see 2 Ukrainian serial killers murder a man on camera. The 2 men in this video, Victor and Igor, were charged with 21 counts of murder. The first 2 murders occurred late on June 25th of 2007. Only a month before their arrest on July of 23rd. Although only 1 murder ever made its way online, the 2 boys carried out vicious, brutal murders of completely innocent people. These 2 boys obviously had a history of absolute heinous crimes. In court, they showed various videos of them torturing and killing animals, which is not uncommon with how serial killers escalate. Their first victim was a 33-year-old woman named Yekaterina, who was walking home after having tea at her friend's apartment. According to Victor, the 2 boys were out on a walk, and after walking past the woman, Igor spun around and attacked her with a hammer. Yekaterina was found early in the morning by her mother. Less than an hour after this murder, the 2 boys would attack their second victim, a man named Roman who was sleeping on a park bench near this initial attack. The 2 boys rendered him completely unrecognizable, attacking his face specifically with blunt objects. This would be a theme throughout almost every single murder they would attack, is they always used blunt objects and they had a hyperfixation with attacking individuals in their face. On July 1st, 2 more victims would appear. Yevgenia and Nikolai were found murdered in a nearby town. Just 5 days after this, Victor and Igor would kill 3 separate people in the same night. A man named Igor, who they attacked when he was walking home from a nightclub. His mother would find him deceased in the morning, right outside their apartment building. After this attack, they went after a 28-year-old woman named Yelena, who, similarly to their original attack on Yekaterina, as the woman walked toward them, Igor took a hammer out from under his shirt and struck the woman several times, even after she had fallen onto the ground. Later this same night, the boys would take a 3rd victim, ending the life of a woman named Valentina, a mother of 3 with a disabled husband at home. After these murders, 16 more would occur. Police were finding multiple victims almost every day for a 2-week period of time. These boys operated in a serial killing spree, which is not very common at all. There's not a lot of overlap between spree killers and serial killers. Most serial killers have a cool-off period. The whole thing about spree killers is they don't. These boys' cool-off period, at most, was about 5 days, which is one of the craziest things you can... It's one of the craziest things I've seen with a serial killer. Having this rapid pace at the numbers and brutality is something that I've almost never heard of. They explicitly went out of their way to get completely unassuming people they believe were easy to attack and vulnerable. People walking late at night, sometimes drinking, the elderly, women, vagrants, anyone they think they could just get away with attacking that wouldn't fight back. They were so absolutely disgustingly brutal, with certain victims being found with their eyes gouged out while they're still living, and even one pregnant woman being found with her baby cut out of her. Now, the prosecution for the boys never established a motive for any of these murders, but the media would put out the concept that all of these murders were carried out on film for money. They reported that the killers had planned to get rich from the murder videos. One suspect's girlfriend reported they planned to make 40 separate videos of murders. This was also corroborated by a former classmate who claimed he heard that Igor was in contact with an unknown rich foreign website operator who ordered 40 snuff videos and pay more money once they were made. These claims surrounding the boys doing it on camera in the gain of monetary profit was of course absolutely denied by government officials, and it was never really put into the court case officially as the occurrence or anything about the murder, but of course that did not stop the propagation of it. Now, they did film multiple murders, but only one would go online, and it would receive the now infamous title of 3 Lunatics, 1 Hammer. In this video, it shows the murder of a 48-year-old man named Sergey. He's viciously attacked on camera by a hammer in a bag, and later a screwdriver. The video is a total of 6 minutes long, and after the attack, they then discuss how the murder had surprised them on how long the victim was alive, and then proceed to clean their weapons. Both boys were given a life sentence, and even after an appeal that was attempted to the Supreme Court by their parents, who for some reason advocate their innocence, even though there is literally video of them killing multiple people, and they have their face in almost all of the videos, and they even posed taking pictures with each other when they mutilated and killed animals. Their parents still advocate that for some reason, somehow, they're completely innocent, and at the time there was no death penalty in Ukraine. There was a third boy who was arrested alongside with them, but in no conjunction with the murder. He was just in part of them robbing and selling things, because sometimes with their victims, they would take their cell phones and go to secondhand stores or pawn shops and sell them. And that was actually how they ended up getting caught. They were attempting to sell one of their victims' cell phones for about $30 and were able to be arrested and caught because they are absolute fucking imbeciles. Once again, it was never made explicitly clear or confirmed that there was this secret snuff ring these teenage boys somehow had access to, and, you know, even if somehow they did, I think without that, they would have absolutely murdered people regardless if there was this concept of profit or not. But this, undeniably, if, you know, we take anything with a grain of salt, hey, maybe they did have some guy who was like, oh, you're killing people, I'll give you $30 for a video, like, we have no clarification, technically, and a lot of people do claim there was a lot of sweeping things under the rug and leaving people out and denying things in court that would implicate some federal officials, which, again, it's all hearsay. I don't like, you know, stating things that aren't completely real, but that it is thrown up in the air that this was all completely done for profit, and if it was, then this is a genuine, true occurrence of snuff. But for me, with this in conjunction with the next thing, is the final nail in the coffin and why I personally generally believe snuff films occur. The final nail in the coffin for me is one of the worst men to ever live on this entire planet, Peter Scully. I have absolutely no desire to talk about him or his heinous, absolutely disgusting crimes, but Peter Scully was a man who was arrested for making notorious CSAM and hurtcore. He made a video that has now gained a level of infamy online referred to as Daisy's Destruction. In this video, a child is tortured, and I do want to mention, because it is a lot of misinformation surrounding this, the child that was in that video was not killed, did not die. The last reports of that child is they are alive and in some sort of like social care setting. The child that was in this video and attacked did not die, was not killed. But Peter Scully did kill at least one child he used in hurtcore material who was found buried in one of his homes. Now, it is unconfirmed, or at least stated by the of federal officials and police that were involved in arresting Scully that he did not record the killing of this child and distribute it like he distributed many other things. He had his own production company running out of multiple houses where he lived, producing this disgusting material for vicious, disgusting people online. I would also like to mention Josh Duggar of 21 Kids and Counting or whatever had Daisy's Destruction on his computer along with a terabyte of CSAM and horrorcore, who will eventually be out and released and probably have contact with his children because his wife is standing by him on all of his charges. Luckily, Peter Scully was arrested and is apprehended and will never be a free man again, but he was creating this material for individuals, so if the disgusting, stupid, vile one man got caught, there's no notion in my head that can't believe that there is a group of individuals going further who haven't been caught, and for all we know, will never be caught, who are producing death on camera for profit, who are creating snuff films. I believe there is probably some inner tight circle so deep on the web that people like you and me will never even come astronomically close to ever surfacing or seeing anything surrounding it. Once you get onto these dark websites, you have to know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. When you get onto Tor browsing and streaming, it's not like Google. Like, you can't just, like, search up what you want. Like, you have to kind of already have an in, especially in these disgusting, heinous circles. Because I know people hate when I'm like, oh, if you know about this, but, like, getting into the deep web and dark web and, like, everything surrounding that and Tor browsers is such an absolutely elaborate and extensive thing that I also don't feel comfortable, knowledgeable enough to explain to you, but I will be showing this chart is things that aren't on the ClearNet. You have to use certain different browsers in which you use computers in which you can't just access that right now on your computer. You can't just grab your, MacBook and just go on the dark web. That's not how any of this works. You have to, research a bit, acquire things, and then for getting to material like this, like, there is this connotation online that the whole, like, outside of ClearNet, like, everything's, like, heinous and crazy and, like, oh, there's all these drug websites and you just stumble across CSAM all the time, and it's, like, that's not really how it works. Like, absolutely there's, like, sites where you can find a bunch of, listed sites, but to be able to get to certain things, like where Peter Scully was creating and distributing things, you have to already be on disgusting parts of that internet and already have some sort of inner way into things and knowing. And as I've mentioned, I don't think snuff has thrived more with the internet age, and with this whole concept of people having this, like, scary overarching dark web, it's led to the now very infamous concept of a red room. Red rooms are truly where the current legend of snuff lays. No longer is the concept of a secret VHS dealer you have to find in dark basements. We're far more advanced for that. In 1990s Japan, a rumor would start that when you were on your computer, a red pop-up ad would come onto your screen stating, "Do you like I?" The pop-up would reappear after trying to close it, with text coming out of the vertical line. Over time, the text will say, "Do you like the red room?" What happens next varies on who tells you, but ultimately it almost always leads to the demise of the individual who was getting the pop-ups. It's believed to be traced back to a Flash horror game around the same time that had a very similar concept, and this is where I personally am going to think this bad game of telephone possibly started the influence of this concept of a red room. If you're unfamiliar, the idea of a red room is this live streaming website that is typically referred to being on the dark or deep web, where it is a live stream of someone being tortured, and you can even possibly pay to interact or choose how the individual is tortured on camera. One of the biggest issues with the concept of this is when you are on dark, deep, whatever you want to say, when you're not on ClearNet, you're typically more often not on a Tor browser or other anonymous browsers. The issue with this is live streaming on these are extremely difficult. Of course, it's not impossible, but it is violently, extremely hard to be able to live stream on Tor browsers. This whole concept of how evil and dark the deep or dark web is, about like how again you can just run into horrible heinous materials, is due in part to the fact of what is referred to as the Woosley effect. This is when a source is widely cited for a claim that the source does not adequately support, giving the claim undeserved credibility. It's essentially spreading this concept of a fact on just words without actual material to support it. It's similar to circle journalism, where I I almost said something else. It's similar to circle journalism, in which it is a regurgitation of the same thing over and over again without basis or facts supporting it. One of my absolute favorite movies in the whole world would start establishing the aesthetics of red rooms, just like Snuff would establish the aesthetics of snuff films. That film being David Cronenberg's Videodrome. In 1983, David Cronenberg would invite us to the idea of an underground live satellite TV show called Videodrome, showing the torture of a woman in a plain, empty orange room, where we end up falling into madness trying to figure out what is real and what isn't, with the escalation of the depravity of the general population reaching new heights of violence for pleasure. Now, as red rooms are essentially the cousin to snuff films, it is very similar to Snuff. The idea of this red room, once again, is lone single girl being tortured on cam. Again, low budget, garbage quality, gritty, disgusting brutality. One of the films that genuinely reminds me a lot to the concept of a red room, of course, outside of Videodrome. Videodrome is like, I again would absolutely argue this is like the first instance of red room in media is Videodrome. It's from 1983. Like, this was the first concept of, you know, you turn onto a channel and you're receiving a live stream of a woman being tortured, which absolutely differs from snuff films. But the film August Underground and the whole franchise, I personally have only ever seen the first one, shows the POV of essentially two sadistic psycho serial killers who are just doing depraved, disgusting stuff on film. Now, both of these points I just mentioned to you are absolutely fictional media, just establishing visuals and baselines for things. But as I mentioned with Peter Scully creating real, genuine, illegal, violent, disgusting material for purchase, for monetary gain online, there is absolutely no reason in my heart of hearts to not believe there is someone killing people on camera for money, creating genuine snuff films, as much as the government would love to deny it. Like, once again, if the government tells you something isn't real, it's probably real. I genuinely believe there's most likely somewhere so deep and under lock and key where you yourself can purchase that depict murder and violence and torture on video that are completely made for the gain of monetary profit. That only those who themselves provide their own material and money are in a web of true inhumane identity and action who have access to these films. Now, why in the world would anyone want to watch or buy a snuff film? Well, we kind of have some sort of idea of this due to the fact there are people who currently, you know, watch and enjoy gore videos. When it comes to gore, there's quite a few options. A big part I hear a lot of people refer to is just morbid curiosity. Some people need to see something to believe it to exist. Like, I personally am completely satiated by words. I don't need to see anyone's bones breaking, but there are people who need to see people's bones breaking. It is one of those weird things in their brain where they just have to see it. I completely understand curiosity. Arguably, I'm too curious, as you could see. But the concept of being so curious you just need to see someone be torn apart is unfortunately not that abnormal to hear. Part of watching gore too is some people get desensitized to genuine violence and seeing it fed to them all the time, or if that's purely the media they themselves seek out, eventually you get almost a tolerance to it and you'll kind of keep escalating and building. Again, I'm referring to people that are watching gore videos. When it comes to snuff videos themselves, I believe a major part of it is pleasure gratification. And specifically with snuff is, hey, if you're commissioning someone for the video, like, you get to pick, and like that plays this power dynamic into the situation of your gratification as you have arguably, I hate to put it like this, but like it's like you have the hand of God at that point. You are now in this position of choosing life or death and how death occurs. And there are some people that are so sick that is their greatest pleasure in life. And again, human brains are weird, and some people are just wired so absolutely insane. I don't think we will ever be able to fully study or comprehend how brains function. And there are people out here who that is their goal, their pleasure, that is what they want. They want to kill people for their own gratification, and they will pay for that to occur for them if they are rich or powerful enough for something like that to happen. I think a lot of the gore watchers, more often than not, at least from my personal experience, are Again, there's absolutely a ton of people who are adults and do it, but I think a lot of it is adolescence. When I was a teenager, it was like, genuinely, we would be at lunch tables pulling up best score, being like, oh my god. Because when you're a teenager, I don't think you have a genuine concept of life itself. Like, I know you're gonna be like, that's insane, or like, when I was a teenager, but like, I myself and my friends, I feel pretty confident in, like, we didn't have a genuine concept of what life was, what it means, things like that. And honestly, teenagers are some of the most unempathetic individuals we will ever come across. So I think a lot of gore stuff does usually come down to edgy teenagers, enjoyers, but there are a large group of people who have this, you know, morbid curiosity, sick fascination, just I've made a point to not watch any of that stuff for years now, because I remember, like, I was probably like 17 the last time I saw a video, and it like was bad. I was just like, why are we watching this? Why are we watching people die? Like, this isn't funny anymore. And I think, again, when you're a teenager, it's just like consuming the most extreme material you could possibly get your hands on, because all you're doing is having all these hormones and emotions and everything's changing, and it's like you just keep feeling and escalating, and like, I don't know. It's so insane. And nowadays we have this, like, it's odd because, again, even I'm 25 and we had shock sites still, and I know people like 5 years below me didn't. Like, they didn't have access or comprehension of shock sites. So I think now there is a bigger desensitization to gore, but I mean a higher sensitivity to gore, but like a desensitivity to violence. So it's very interesting to see it, because I feel like a lot of people are more squeamish, but like all day every day we're fed violent content constantly everywhere. So now I'm just rambling. But again, people who are purchasing or buying snuff films are different. That is a breed of its own. And once again, I genuinely believe them to exist. And I want to reiterate one final time for people watching this: the current recognized situation surrounding snuff by the federal government is murder that is committed on camera in the means of creating the material to then distribute and get monetary profit and gain from. Death on camera is not snuff. That is its own entity, completely separate aside from it. But with that was the grim reality of snuff, or whatever I'm calling this on take 2. I know this video is like absolutely not going to do as well as it did the first time, but I put some effort into this, and I think it is a very fascinating topic to discuss with people. So I wanted to remake this video, and I'm hoping I don't get in trouble again. That would be so amazing if I didn't get in trouble again. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, and I know it's a long one, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for everyone who's liking, commenting, and subscribing. And once again, thank you to all the members of the channel. You really do mean the most. And I know I keep saying and, I'm just like, I just can't believe I'm redoing this video. It's like kind of crazy. To be fair, I'm an idiot, which, again, shocker how many times I'm gonna say an idiot in a video, but like, lost the footage, that's on me. So we're re-recording it. I was meant to wear lip liner, I guess. Someone on the street yelled at me and told me I looked like Pete Burns, so let me know who I look like down below. And with that, once again, thanks for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you like this video, what video would you like? Hey, maybe you like the last upload I had about necropants and the wacky world of Icelandic witchcraft. With that, I will see you next time. Bye.